welcome back to my channel. Today our topic of discussion is going to be nutrition. What is nutrition? Nutrition is not only limited to the food that we eat. During my studies at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, I came to realize that we have two main sources of food. We have the secondary food source, which is what we are familiar with, which constitutes of what we have on our plate. And we also have the primary food source, which constitutes of relationship, career, spirituality, and physical activity. And the goal is to get these two sources of food in balance so that they can each contribute towards each other, and then we will have the required nourishment from the food that we eat. This month is Nutrition Month, and when I was doing research to come out with this talk today, I came up with some information that was very troubling to me. I came to realize that it takes 30 years for Alzheimer's to be fully blown out. Like before you are fully showing signs of Alzheimer's disease, it already started 30 years ago. And I was thinking to myself, if most people who start demonstrating signs of Alzheimer's and dementia are in their 70s and 80s, it means they started having these symptoms 30 years back, and that will be in their 50s, 40s, or late 30s. And that got me thinking. I am in my mid-40s, and this means that I need to do something now if I do not want to get to that place of Alzheimer's or dementia 30 years down the road. And one of the major things that I need to fix is nutrition. And so during this talk, I'm going to give you 4 simple ways that you can adopt to make your nutrition be what it is supposed to be nourishing. So during this first part, we are going to talk primarily about the secondary food sources, and in a subsequent video, we're going to talk about the primary food sources. So this is a picture of the integrative nutrition plate, and it consists of whole grains, fruits, vegetables, protein in equal proportions, and as a side you have fats and oil and water. This is a big distinction from the Canadian Food Guide, which is very different, and the Standard American Diet, which is very, very different. So this one is more proportionate, and we're going to explain why it presents this way. So why is food important? Why are we talking about nourishment? Food is very important because when we eat, the food is digested, it is assimilated into our systems, and it forms the building block of our systems, and it powers the metabolism of our bodies. But it has been known that food has become a double-edged sword, because now our food is very different from what our ancestors used to eat. Now we have ultra-processed foods, which our systems have not evolved to metabolize. And so when we eat more of this food, which is very difficult to avoid now because it is everywhere, when we eat more of these ultra-processed foods, it now results in diabetes, it results in obesity, we have fatty liver diseases, and all of these are witnessing an upward trend, and this is because of the food we are eating. That is why we say you are not just what you eat, you are what you digest and assimilate. So what you eat and what happens down there in your GI tract and how it finally gets into your system is very important. How can we make the food that we eat be nourishing and not slowly kill us? These are 4 different ways to make your food nourishing. I have already let the cat out of the bag. The first thing is UPFs, ultra-processed foods. They are very ubiquitous. They are found everywhere. And how can you identify these food items? Anything that is packaged and has a barcode is a processed food. Anything that does not look as close to its natural form as it can be, you should be wary of. And we have tons of this food that is found in our supermarkets, and most of the time, because it's very easy to make them, we go for these food items because we're in a fast-paced world and people are looking for ways of catching up with the pace. So they look for the easy way out, and having these canned processed foods is very detrimental to our system. These food items, I would say, are basically chemicals. They have a unique combination of fats, of salt, of sugar that turns out to be very, very addictive. And have you realized that when you eat these processed foods, you have the tendency of feeling hungry and wanting to eat again? Why? Because these foodstuffs are digested very quickly in our digestive system. They get out into our bloodstream really fast, and it spikes up our sugar level, increases the production of insulin to get the sugar out of our bloodstream and into the cells. And when this happens really fast, what's next? You start feeling hungry again because there's nothing in there. Secondly, this also is a contributory factor to things like diabetes and obesity, because our fat stores have a maximum capacity of the amount of fat they can store. When we keep eating these processed foods, it keeps getting deposited in the cells. And there comes a time when our cells will be like, I've had enough of this fat, I can't take any more. And then what happens? You become insulin resistant, because the work of insulin is to transport the excess sugar in our bloodstream into the cells to power the cell metabolism and to store some of it as fat in our fat cells. But when our cells become insulin resistant, the insulin can no longer transfer this sugar from our bloodstream into the cells, and that leads to high blood sugar levels, which can result in type 2 diabetes. And it can also lead to obesity because there's this constant desire to eat, and it keeps adding fat to our fat cells and some of it into the liver when the cells can no longer take any more. And that's why there's an increase in the incidence of fatty liver disease. So if we avoid these ultra-processed foods now, we're doing justice to ourselves, because we are not going to be prone to all these diseases that result from consuming ultra-processed foods. However, when we eat food that is as close to its natural form as possible, our systems identify it and they process it slowly. It is assimilated into the bloodstream slowly, and this most of the time will not lead to those spikes in sugar levels and in insulin levels. And with that, you are able to guard against developing diabetes and obesity. Secondly, we have to eat mindfully. We are in a fast-paced world, and we think that we have to always juggle things in order to catch up. We have to multitask. I know that multitasking is only a myth. It doesn't exist, because you only keep shifting your mind from one thing to another, but it's very draining. It's very energy demanding. And so it also reduces productivity. So sometimes when we are eating, we are watching TV, we are reading a book, we are watching a movie, we are just so distracted. And because of that, we do not eat mindfully. And I'll tell you, we do not get the most out of the food we are eating. So what we need to do is to make eating intentional. Be in the moment. Show respect and gratitude for your food. Think about people who do not have food to eat, and you're blessed enough to have food to eat. So make that moment sacred. Why is that? Because when you are eating mindfully, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the system for rest, repair, and reproduce. Repair. Think about that. So when you are eating mindfully and your parasympathetic nervous system is activated, you are already in that process of repair. And by automatically, you will also get the most out of the food you're eating. Another thing that comes into play when we are not eating mindfully is that we do not take time to chew the food properly. Why did our species come with teeth? Because we needed to chew. We have the tendency of rushing over food and just swallowing the food without properly taking time to chew the food. Why do we even need to chew food? First of all, we have teeth for that reason. And secondly, we need to chew food because the process of digestion actually starts in the mouth. Your teeth are there to break down the food into smaller particles, and some enzymes are already activated to start breaking down the food in the mouth. So if you miss this part of digestion, you are not going to get the most out of the food you're eating because you have already missed an important part of the process of digestion. So please take time to chew your food properly and be mindful and show respect for the food you're eating. Some people have the tendency of doing a gratitude practice or saying a prayer before eating. That too is something that is very admirable, because by just showing gratitude for the food you're eating, that too goes to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, keeps you in a restful state, and ensures that the process of rest and repair and digest goes on smoothly. And also, when this food that has not been properly broken down gets into your GI tract and it finally gets into your stomach or your intestines, if you are unfortunate that you have some leakage in your intestine and this food, which is not properly digested, finally finds its way into the bloodstream, it's very dangerous. Why? First of all, in the process of digestion, your digestive system puts a code on the food that is being digested that your immune system can recognize. So when this food is not properly digested, of course, it would lack that code. And if it gets out of your digestive system into your bloodstream, it's going to provoke an immune response, because your immune system will consider this foreign body as something that it needs to protect itself against. And this, of course, is what may result in autoimmune deficiencies. So please take time to chew your food properly if you want to get the most nourishment out of your food. And you would accept with me that when you do not chew your food properly, it results in other digestive issues like bloating, constipation, gas, which is very, very uncomfortable. So if you want to avoid these things, make sure you're eating mindfully and you're chewing your food properly. Another thing that is very important is the time that we eat. That brings us to the third factor of getting the most nourishment out of the food we are eating. We have to be able to make our eating be in sync with the circadian rhythm. Like eat when the sun is up, and at night there is no eating. We know that people who eat very late at night stand the risk of being obese. And what is this? Why is this so? This is because naturally we are active during the day and we are winding down and resting at night. That is why our metabolism slows down at night, because we do not need a lot of energy to go to sleep. So our metabolism slows down. And if you eat too close to bedtime, you are actually getting in the way of this rest and repair process that goes on when we are sleeping. And it actually interferes with your sleep. There are times that you won't be able to get a restorative sleep because your bowels are full. And instead of your system resting and repairing and doing what it's supposed to do when you are asleep, it's now directing all its energy towards digesting the food you have in your GI tract. and this is something that has very detrimental effects. Also, when you eat too close to bedtime, you're telling your brain that it is daylight, because your brain knows that naturally you eat during the day. So when you eat too close to bedtime, you are telling your brain that it is daytime. So you are actually activating wakefulness in your brain. And this can affect your sleep quality. You find it difficult to go to sleep, or even if you go to sleep, you do not have a restorative sleep. Nutritionists propose that we should try to eat about 2 to 3 hours before going to bed, so that it gives enough time for your food to be digested, so that you go to bed ready to get a restorative sleep, and to give the chance for your rest and repair system to take control and actually do what it's supposed to do when you are asleep. Finally, this brings me to the fourth point. Where is your food sourced from? The rule of thumb is to eat local and to eat organic if you can. And why is it important to eat local? One, when you eat local, it means that the food has not stayed for long during the process of transportation to the store, and because of that, it still maintains its integrity and has not lost a lot of nutrients. But if you eat food that is not local, or that has been transported from long distances, it has already lost a lot of its nutritional value in that process of transportation. When you eat organic, your food doesn't have all the pesticides that other foods that are produced industrially will have. So try to eat local, one, and if you can, eat organic. When you go to purchase your fruits and vegetables, take a keen look at the fruits and vegetables and make sure that they still have their original bright colors, that they are not getting yellowish, which means that they have been there for too long and they are already losing a lot of their nutritional value. So make sure you're buying fresh. Another tip to find out how long your fruits and vegetables have been in the supermarket is to walk up to a store attendant, give him or her a beautiful smile, and just ask. And trust me, they will give you that information. And then you can use that to inform yourself of what fruits and vegetables you can get. And think about it. Another thing you should have at the back of your mind is when you get into a grocery store, in order to assess if you're doing the right thing, make sure you're shopping in the peripheries. Now, take 1 minute to make a mental picture of what your grocery store looks like. If you are being honest to yourself, you would realize that the fruits and the vegetables are found in the periphery. That is what your body needs. So please, when you get into a grocery store, if you are shopping 70, 80, 90% of the time in the periphery, then you're doing the right thing. So this far, we've talked about secondary food and how we can get the most out of the food we eat, so we can get the maximum nourishment as well. And we brought up 4 different ways in which we can make this happen for us. The first way is to avoid UPF, avoid ultra-processed foods. Make sure you eat food that is as close to its natural form as possible. Secondly, learn to practice mindful eating. Be in the moment and make sure you chew your food properly before swallowing. Thirdly, make sure to sync your eating rhythm to the circadian rhythm. Eat when the sun is up and do not eat at night when the sun is down. And finally, make sure you know where your food is sourced from in order to get the most nutritious food that can be available. Thank you. In the next video, we're going to talk about primary foods.